on, he's like this, just like looking straight ahead. It was unbelievable. So what else?
There's this one song that's coming to mind. I can't remember the name. It's like a 10-minute song. It has to do with like sliding into like different basses. Like there's like singing parts, men versus women. It was like a super popular song. If anyone in the chat knows any idea what I'm talking about, drop it in. Then there were like the typical Danza Kuduros, Bruno Mars, like all those hits. Like that was all there. Sweet Caroline, we went through it. Twist and Shout was like another classic. Frankie Valli was a go-to at the time as well. So like those would be in that box. But outside of that, no, none of those songs.
Yes. So thank you very much for that.
Meatloaf, there it is.
Boom, 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 boom.
Paradise by the Dashboard Lights. Thank you.
Love it. All right, dude, 70s. Okay, so you understand music. So now we're settled. So we're going to drop in on a couple of quick things. One is, let's just pop. We're going to have a guest this morning. I'm not sure if she's around or available. Jacqueline Franchetti, is she out there? Unblinded team. Come back, interrupt and say Jacqueline's here. Just interrupt me at any moment if she is. So we had an interesting scenario that occurred a couple days ago, where Erica brought up a question related to, I want to appropriately articulate it. It was somebody in the workplace had made a comment about a black eye, and I think it was something to the effect of his wife having hit him, and it was his attempt at humor, and that's like not what had happened. And so Erica asked a question about how to handle it. I think I went through a very lengthy, was my recollection. It was probably 10 minutes.
Okay. And by the way, Sean, Jacqueline will not be able to join us today, but please continue.
Yeah. Okay. So, and love Jacqueline to no end. And Jacqueline, I mean, suffered the most horrific tragedy with the loss of her daughter at the hands of her ex-husband in a domestic violence, tragedy. And Jacqueline's a warrior across the country in issues of domestic violence. So I went through, in my mind, what was a lengthy conversation about it, balancing and going through all different sorts of my attempted balance, of course, my own story and reality, of all different types of scenarios, humor, off color, not, the complexity of, I don't like bathroom humor, for example, but bathroom humor is obviously not humor about something that costs lives and, people suffer tragedies from. So my mind, I made no light of it. And by the way, I'm also not hearing that there was any optic of complaint that I made light of it by anybody or critique. I think though the next day, so I'm not sure if there's more feedback from that. We'll get it from Jacqueline shortly. The next day, apparently the question arose again in the mastery huddle. Somebody, the mastery called 8 a.m. Somebody made a comment about it. And there was a mixture of different things. There was questions about somebody being silenced about it. So we're going to continue to explore the conversation, right, about the issue. And I definitely want to hear from Jacqueline from her perspective. I'm looking forward to it. This only came to my attention in the latter part of yesterday. It arose again in conversations we had this morning. I also want to share that, the mastery call, there's people, there have been very meaningful complaints about people taking up too much space and time and attention and not serving the group. So I think there's some complexity around this very important issue, other issues about who takes up how much space. So we're going to be pivoting the format of the 8 a.m. call shortly to where we're going to have people who are leading it and taking turns leading it. And they're going to have the ability to have authorship over it. And, we're also going to have people from Unblinded on it as well. And we're going to progress the format because we tried to create a space for it and people communicate. And obviously when you do, there can be a vacuum, a bit of leadership. So we're going to have designated leaders each day. And if there's problems, then, we'll talk about it. But I would always ask, everybody to be thinking of the space and how we're occupying it in service of the group and everybody. And certainly the advancement of you, and the advancement of you is by giving, if you think about these huddles, we run these every day. And this is probably going to change in the future, but we don't even have a call to action. We're not running any commercial for anything we do. We're giving away amazing amounts of content for free. So I hope that remains present for people because I've been around a long time and I've given a lot in my life. And I've had situations where sometimes things don't have the intended consequences. So, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, actually, in at Cal Law. I was super thrilled with everything everybody was doing. And I just gave everybody the final week of August off, like just additional bonus week off, like just go. And it was interesting for the next 3 months, our productivity was way off. And it was almost like we had broken a pattern of momentum and people went into like a different mindset. And it didn't, lessons are things we learn are often much more complicated than the simple. It's not like, oh, see, be generous to people, see what happens. That would be sort of like our grandparents' version of like truth. And my version of truth is there's a multitude of complexities that go into everybody's feeling, everybody's position, everybody's story, right? And so, but I do think that what can be present for people, and I've experienced this in my own personal relationships, maybe you have as well, is we can sort of normalize. And maybe a better story is this one. I had a person I knew who gave lunch to his employees every single day for about 7 years. Bought lunch for them with the intention that we'd eat in the office, kind of like have a little break, but pretty much maybe take 15 minutes, more eat together in a conference room, get some stuff done, and that was the way the company worked. So what began to happen is everybody got the lunch paid for, ate the lunch in, took that sort of break time there, and then they were all going and they began to go out to lunch, like a couple, then a couple, then a couple, and all of a sudden, like there was 2 lunch hours, one paid for and one when everybody left. And so for all of us, there's also a lesson in like, you know, in gratitude and perhaps taking for grantedness that can occur from things. So, when we think about all the different dynamics of what's happening, there's important world issues that are occurring. There's issues about race, clearly, massively, domestic violence, gender bias, right? And I'm going to put this in the ring, religious bias. I think there's massive religious bias in America against every religion, including Christianity. So, like, yeah, including Christianity. So, I think there's bias against blind people, and I experience it. I think there's rampant domestic violence, and in the house I'm sitting in, I had an iron thrown at my head from behind, from 10 feet above, that if it hit me in the head would have killed me, right? And was hit in the face, not slapped, but like closed handed in the face. I will not. I'll give everybody their own ability to perceive domestic violence. What I call. I have scars on my arm, by the way, from scratches that I received. So it's difficult as a man to say I was a victim of domestic violence, but probably by any account I was. But I don't. I don't connect that way, nor do I denigrate any experience of a man. There's a complete difference between strength and physicality between men and women. I am bringing the point up simply to say that I have great empathy, beyond empathy, for anything that happens. And any scenario in which a man would raise a finger towards a woman is a catastrophically insane problem, right? Period. Like unacceptable, even to give the feeling of the potential for violence, right? It is horrible. And I don't think anybody's questioning my position on that. And I've certainly at length talked about racial bias in America and all these things. I say those things to say, collectively, let's all step into our like, and this is where it gets like all fuzzy, right? Our greatest levels of sensitivity and awareness, right? And kindness. We're here to be influencers, influencing influencers, to merge ecosystems to make the world an even greater place. And there's competitive time for time. So if we're on different calls and different things are happening, for somebody, they're hurting because they can't pay their mortgage. And somebody else might want to talk about a question of bias, a question of domestic violence, a question of a something, and how we assimilate these complexities in Unblinded, on a mastery call, in a huddle, of who gets the microphone, who's leading the call, what's the topic, how much attention, energy should be paid to it, when does it become lacking in empathy, right? On the fringes of all this is massive complexity. And when we focus on, and I'm not saying all this is what Jacqueline's doing, I can't wait to talk to Jacqueline and hear what she has to share, what's on her heart. looking forward to it. But on the fringe, what we choose to focus on, you know, so I could choose to focus on the fact that I haven't repaired the wall where the iron hit it, right? And I don't know, maybe I leave it there for 10 different reasons, but it's not repaired, right? And maybe it's so I never get involved in another caretaking dynamic, which of course that won't ensure at all, but that I hope that will support me in that space. And I never get involved in unhealthy dynamics ever again in my life, that I allow and receive. Um, but I am present to that we could have a massively complicated conversation about whether the wall should be fixed or not. And that could be a focus of the conversation. Like a focus of the conversation, you know, with my kids about our beach house is, should we have carpeting or go to hardwood floors? Right. And we could focus on the beach house, and like that could become a thing. You know, there's been conflict in my own family about a family property, and, you know, what should happen with it. And should we fix the electrical wiring or not? And like all of a sudden the spirit of something is like lost. This is ridiculous. And why shouldn't we do it? And who's creating the problem? And right. And we can get very charged very quickly. So what I'm proposing and putting out there to all of us is, and this is what I believe I said the other day as well. Issues are serious, right? And there's lots of them. In this very minute, in this very second, people are being murdered. In this very second, people are being sex trafficked and abused horrifically all over the world, right? People are being defrauded. People are depressed. People are committing suicide. Villages are being raided and people are being enslaved. Like, this is actually happening while we're speaking on this planet. Animals are being slaughtered, right? People are violating every law conceivable, right? All this is happening right now. And there's like diseases inside our body. Like there's viruses going on that our immune system is fighting, right? We're blinking, our hearts are beating. There's immense choices of focus. And I am certainly not the arbiter of what to focus on. But I do know that there's complexity, right? And in a room at like a, you know, giant event where like charities compete for attention. And like I've been in a room where people are like, horse slaughter, why does that matter? Like, do you understand? Like, over here we're fighting cancer. Like, it's a weird conversation. I'm not saying it's wrong, but yeah, like we put all these competing time interests, energy interests, focus interests. When is humor okay? What is funny? What isn't funny? You know, these are complex dinner conversations that every one of them could take 5 hours to talk about, and two people leave angry, one's crying, and three people are laughing, and nobody talks to each other again. And that's because of suboptimal dynamics of resolving differences and understanding the rule, the life mapping, brain mapping, heart mapping, differentials that all occur. None of that is to say there aren't pressing and important issues. But I'll tell you this, right? We don't all agree on what they are in priority. Like, we don't all agree on what they are in priority. And when we become, and this is not saying anybody is this, but when we become an authority figure around what people are prioritizing and make people wrong for it versus preference for it, right? That's when it gets complicated. Now, that's not to say like, you know, that there's jokes that are not completely inappropriate, but there's a spot. This is like, here's my vision, like my eyesight, right? If you took out, like, this is a book and this is a piece of paper. If you started punching holes with a hole puncher in this paper, at some moment to you, it wouldn't be paper anymore. To somebody else, it would be at a different moment. But right, like maybe there's like 1,000 holes that could be punched in this paper. At hole punch number 887, right? Or maybe hole punch number 642, it's no longer paper, right? At hole punch number to you, maybe to somebody else, like, oh, that's not paper anymore, right? And somebody looks at a picture, there's the artwork, they see two different things. So at some point, right, maybe there's an objective force in the world. Let's call it God. Let's call it universal energy, right? At some place, there's that standard of like, what is the right amount of time to listen, right? In a format, what is the right moment that it is no longer funny and it's hurtful, right? There's that moment, right? And then that's like this objective, let's say that, it's God's decision. It's the universal energy's decision, right? And there's a different moment for each of us. And there's a moment when we fall so far outside of that like objective, or there's a point we fall outside of that objective reasonableness, that it becomes an issue. And this is why we have juries. And this is why we have lawsuits. Because people have, on the law is pretty clear, but people fight about the facts. And if the law was broken. And so when and this is not a legal issue we're talking about, but it's the same idea that there's societal standards, there's societal rules, there's your rules, there's my rules, there's our rules, Unblinded's rules. And that's what we're all talking about. And so as long as we can hold space for the reasonableness of the conversation, like, yeah, for some people, including my son said it, whose values are quite libertarian, said, yeah, like the riots are not like the Boston Tea Party, when people said enough and we're going to engage in behavior that's outside of the legal standard to make sure people wake up, and for other people, it's completely wrong. For some people, it's a closer question. For some people, it's totally right, and if your intention and heart-centeredness is on the good of all people, then wherever you come down on that issue is reasonable, I think, right? Is reasonable. I'd say right is reasonable. If your intention on any issue is the harm and degradation of others, then I would say you're not on the optimal side of that issue. And how we handle all of these things, if I will put this out there firmly, my intention is to do the best I can and we can every day on honoring that balance. And for some of you, you're like, stop this. This is BS. Like, are you kidding me? Let's get to the topic. And for some of you, feeling heart connected. And for some of you, you're saying, you should say this is wrong. I guarantee you all three of those perspectives are in the heads of all of you amazing people right now, and everything in between. So please know that's where my heart is. And if it doesn't meet your expectation, I wish it did, but there's however many folks are listening on a daily basis now, right? I'm confident we're in the hundreds between all the different platforms that listen every day. Maybe it's 1,000 or more, I don't know, right? But whatever it is, we each have a slightly distinct perspective. And I have lengthy debates with my dad on the beach about his political perspectives, because mine sit much more in seeking truth than a side, right? Seeking truth regardless of side. That's where I come down imperfectly, I'm sure, and I love everybody. And for anybody that's ever in pain, I don't want that. I don't want that. And what I want is the fastest solution for pain emotionally, and absolutely in all settings, for physical safety for people, for physical safety, which of course, because becomes very complicated on how to deliver that, which is its own much more lengthy story. So thank you for that monologue. I thought it was appropriate to address as some concerns and energy and friction arose in our hearts, empathy for each other, right? Unconditional love with boundaries, understanding everything's an act of love or cry for help. So somebody's charged by something, holding space and openness for it, loving the best we can. That's the proposal. So with that said, a few more minutes to go. Adam Gugino, you out there, brother?
Yes, I'm out here.
All right. How'd I do? And anything else I should address?
I mean, wow.
Fernando, hit the chat. Anything left unsaid? Anything anybody charged would like me to address something unaddressed? Please check out the chat, Fernando. Adam, good.
My bold proclamation is, I don't know if anybody on the planet could have articulated it more optimally than you just did. I'd like to meet them if they are out there.
Yeah. Well, and I'll say this. I've laughed at things I'm not proud of in my life, right? And so, yep, I'll go with that. And I've said a lot of things I'm not proud of in my life, right? Not on the topics we're talking about, but on other things. I've called people names, not racial names, but I've used words I'm not proud of many times in my life, and those words have been used at me on the athletic field in hotly contested dynamics. So, I hold space for the fact that we can say things that, we wish we wish we would not have said. And that's not code for anything. I've called people a mother effer. I'm like, that mother effer. But I've said F you, like, I've said, do you have a problem with that? Like I've confronted things that way, and in most of the situations, I wish I probably hadn't. In many of those situations, and some of them, I'm very happy I did. So life is pretty complicated, brother. And we do not sit on a pedestal, because I've made more mistakes than I've made right decisions. And Unblinded is not about perfection at all. It's about progress. It's about growth and making things happen. And it's about love and empathy for everybody who's in pain. So there you go. Thank you, brother.
Just wait, make sure I love that line. Unblinded is not about perfection. It's about progress. Please. Yeah, let's
yeah. And everything I'll try to get better. And if you could tell me how I could get better at having more empathy, I'm always open to it, because there's no perfect empathy. Right. But also how to have effective boundaries, because maybe I spent too much time talking about that. And if I took your time with that too much, I apologize to you as well. You're like, dude, help me get my business day started, man. Come on. Like, let's go. You go to Bruce Springsteen concert and people get upset when he talks about political issues. I'm not trying to talk about political issues, but about play your music, dude. You could be saying, hey, dude, enough with this stuff. Play your music. Talk about ecosystem merging, business. Let's go. And if that's you, again, my apologies, for taking the time, doing the best I can. Brothers and sisters, love you. Okay. So Adam, records are broken. Now we're going to get into business acceleration. Adam, what record did you break? Super proud of you.
So last week when we were prior to the morning huddle, I put out a bold statement to say that I was going to time block for a record-breaking day of really sales meetings and generally speaking, just any type of meeting that was moving towards some type of invitation or a meeting overall. And the record at the time was 16 in one day going into the day before the time block.
So 16 is the record.
Yes.
And then what do you do?
31.
Okay. So 16 to 31. And we're going to talk about agreement formation, fear rejection. I'm going to wrap in 3 minutes. Adam, how the heck was the record 16 and then became 31? Did you just double your beingness? Was there two of you? What happened?
The commitment. So when you ask why, first, one of the key moving towards values for me is to not let anyone down. So I knew that there was a lot that had to get done based on people that I needed to speak to. So going into the day, I said, I got to make this happen. And once I said it, I knew that it was going to come to fruition. And that was that I was going to time block a specific amount of time, not be distracted by anything else other than the task at hand, which was breaking that record.
Awesome, man. Sick, crazy job. And it also shows us how much more is possible, because Adam is committed, driven, focused, loving, loyal, and he doubled a record in a day.
Can I tell a story too, quickly?
Of course.
And by the end of the day, I was making my last phone call to somebody by the name of Vito. And he said I could, tell the story. It was 6:30. I gave him a call and I hadn't spoken to him. He was on one of the Real Raw Opens, picked up the phone. Hey, this is Adam. I'm like, yeah, hey, how you doing? And he said, yeah. I'm like, well, yeah, I'm just looking to, schedule some time and chat. And he said, oh my God, I can't believe it. Am I one of the record-breaking numbers of your calls? I said, well, as long as you schedule a time with me. And he said, absolutely, looking forward to it. And we chatted yesterday, and it was an amazing call. And it was just a really fun way to finish the day with that 30-second scheduled appointment.
Awesome. And final. When is the last time you, Adam Gagino, felt rejected in a business context?
Yesterday.
Okay. And so what's Adam Gugino's rule for rejection? You feel rejected when what? And thank you for that candor, because we had a number of people on the group coaching call in the afternoon yesterday, 3 in a row, that beautifully said, listen, I don't feel rejected. So we're about to unlock something for Adam, and this is amazing. So I didn't expect that answer. It's beautiful. So yeah. And what's your rule for rejection, Adam?
When I feel misunderstood is when I feel rejected.
Okay. And how is that rule serving you? Because our rules always serve us. How is that rule serving you? Let's pause. It's been a long day. We're going to come back tomorrow, right? And we're going to clean up Adam's rule. And we're going to figure out how we reframe a rule. So let's pick it up there, because I'm going to take a few more minutes and we're going to go deeper. And I don't want to do this quickly because I was not expecting that answer. I'm fired up that we have it, because it's going to unlock something for you, Adam. And tonight, please contemplate, how is that rule serving you? Because it is. It's doing something for you, right? And how is it harming you? And let's unpack that tomorrow. What's it costing you today, 5 years from today, 20 years from today? And what does it cost you up until right now? Sound fair, brother?
Absolutely. I'm open to anything.
All right. Love you, man. And Fernando, what say you? Chat, anything?
Let's flip through the chat. We have woohoo, great job, Adam. When you know better, you do better. We have thank you for helping me see what I could not see about the topic. We have amazing call today. We have many different things from before, all positive, no questions specifically, just shares of thank you, of gratitude. That's correct, truth, etc. So that's where we're in the chat. And thank you, Adam, for that candor. I'm looking forward to stepping into continued vulnerability this week, in the future, and this weekend.
Yeah. And everybody, remember, thank you so much. And as we sign off for today, every day in the huddle, we're doing our best job to get you started. And we are here to solve big problems in the world over time. But it begins with us and us taking care of business at the same time. So, the format is not such that we are currently addressing and solving all the world's greatest challenges. It's so that we're arming people with the skill sets, though, to do so, but we are addressing and touching on those challenges for sure. So I'm so grateful that these topics of racial, systemic racism, division, how we display it, what is acceptable forms of, civil unrest, when is something become a riot versus a demonstration? Like, these are complicated issues, folks, right? And I don't feel afraid of any of them. So we'll tackle every topic, and we could topic but not at length and distraction, occasional. But the Unblinded podcast is coming. And so when the Unblinded podcast is here, then you're going to hear lengthy conversation about all this stuff, and be happy to have lots of conversation about it. So love all of you. It's Why Wednesday. LBI is coming. LBI is coming. It is here. Fun and magic. And for all of you, today is coming. Today is here. Ecosystem merger, speaking engagement, sales meeting, sales, loving yourself, other people unconditionally with boundaries, no fear of rejection, reframing, agreement formations all day. Hello to yes changes everything in your life when it's integrous and heart-centered. Love